Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to go through my wrap up for the first month of January. Alright guys, so today is January 13th, so we are a little bit under the halfway mark, but I wanted to go ahead and get this wrap up done this weekend, and I definitely have enough books to talk about. I have read and finished 7 books so far this month, and once I go through those 7 books, I will let you know what I'm currently working on, as well as some of my plans for the second half of the month. I am taking part in Squash That series. This is a round that is going all the way through February 6th, and each week there is a different challenge, so it's very hard for me to say for sure what I'm going to be reading. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the first book that I finished this year. The first book I finished this year was an audiobook, and that is Snow Plays Like LA by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. This book is a novella that goes along with the Merry Little Meet Cute, which I read in December and gave 5 stars. Unfortunately, I didn't love this one as much. I only gave it 3.5 stars. In this, we follow Luca and Angel, and they were side characters that we definitely saw forming a relationship in that first book, and this novella follows as that relationship continues. If I have to be completely honest, the narrator of the audiobook did take a lot of the enjoyment away from me. I am a little bit picky about how my narrators sound, especially since I do listen to my audiobooks on 2x speed, and not everyone's voice works well for that. So that made it a slightly annoying read at times, but otherwise it was for the most part just a good, smutty, and cute time, and I think a 3.5 is a perfectly good rating for it. Do I wish that my first book of the year was higher rated? Of course, but you know, it is what it is, and I got to continue in that series. Up next, I finished another novella audiobook, and that is Into the Riverlands by Niveau. This is the 3rd book in the Singing Hills cycle, I believe it is called. In this book, we are following a cleric called Chi, and they kind of just wander around their region collecting different stories. In this story, they are in the Riverlands, surprise, surprise, and they start traveling with, I believe, a husband, wife, and a pair of sisters, and they start hearing about some of the stories of that region as well as their companions. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I always really enjoy these audiobooks. Are they a little short for me to really give them higher ratings? Yes, I'm not a huge short story person, but Nebo obviously is a very talented storyteller, and these stories are very smooth and relaxing and enjoyable to listen to. I find them rather entertaining. I do enjoy the queer representation. I enjoy the mythology that is fitted into these stories, despite the fact that the stories at times seem rather grim and dark. I also feel that these stories are very cozy in a way, kind of stories that you would be telling around the campfires. So once again, really enjoyed the writing. I find the characters, especially in this story, were very entertaining, and I was definitely very interested in their stories. So I am looking forward to continuing with this author's work. Next, I read 2 books off of KU that are in the same series, so I want to go ahead and kind of put those together. I want to say these were books 3 and 4. Book 3 was The Man with the Glass Eye, and book 4 was Changing Faces, and this is by Cole McCade. This is a rather long series. I want to say that there's 11 books in it, and we are following Malcolm and Sanjay, and they are homicide detectives for the Baltimore Police Department. In each story, we are technically following a different homicide that they are having to solve, but we can kind of see clearly that there is an outside force, in a way seems to be communicating to Sonjay through these crime scenes. We also get to experience the lives outside of the homicides for these two detectives, including a very slowly developing romance. It is very clear that these two have feelings for each other, no matter how unwanted they are, but those are definitely growing stronger and stronger in every book, and I am enjoying every second of it. I will say, compared to the first book, these last few murders have seemed a lot less gruesome. The author definitely started off with a bang in the first book, so they have been a little bit easier to read, not as gory, and I definitely think that we are seeing a lot more of the personal aspect of the story when it comes to character development. I will say that in book 3, I didn't love the mystery as much. I felt like it was very much a background to everything else that was happening in the story. However, in Changing Faces book 4, I did think that the mystery aspect was a lot more interesting, especially because it was very obvious that that case was going to lead to some bigger fish possibly being caught later in the series. I absolutely love both of the characters in this book. Malcolm is older than Sonjay by about 10 years. However, Sonjay is technically his superior, and the two of them are very often butting heads because their way of being a police officer is a lot different. Sonjay is still relatively young and very much a rule follower. Is that because of his autism or just because he hasn't been in the police force as long and he's not as jaded? I don't know, but Malcolm, on the other hand, is more the kind of person who's willing to communicate with people they know are criminals in hopes of catching other criminals, and he's just someone who's been on the workforce long enough to know that sometimes if you want to get something done, you have to break the rules a little bit. At the same time, Malcolm is a very caring person. He very much understands that the police department has failed its people, and so he is very gentle with the family members or friends of the victims that he's speaking to. So he's definitely the kind of police officer that you want showing up at your front door when you're in trouble. Things are definitely escalating. In the 4th book, we kind of found out who that person is that seems to be leaving little notes at the crime scenes is and whose past they belong to, and I'm very interested to see where that goes. Once again, I absolutely love Cole McCade's writing and his characters, and am looking forward to hopefully continuing with this series very soon. Next, we had another audiobook, and that is The Time I Got Drunk and Needed a Love Potion at a Werewolf by Kimberly Lemming, and this is the 2nd book in the Mead Mishaps series. Pretty much in this world we have humans and then we have what are considered demons, and recently in the 1st book something occurred where the two species are starting to interact more. The synopsis seems not to mention any of their names, so I don't remember the characters' names, but pretty much we have a female character who is being kind of harassed by someone in her town, and he tries to get her to drink this very pink bubbly drink, and she gets so annoyed at him that she throws it at him, but he ducks and it hits this werewolf in the face instead, and turns out it's a love potion. However, that werewolf ends up imprinting on her. Is that the thing? Like, he sees her as his mate, but she doesn't believe him because she's like, I threw a love potion at you, that's why you feel this way. And so pretty much this book is just the two of them trying to get this love potion off of him, and him also trying to convince her that he's not just in love with her because of the love potion, but because she is his fated mate. and all that jazz. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 stars. I feel like with this series, I don't absolutely love it, but they're a fun time. If you want a fun, easy, sexy time, I would definitely pick these up. They're relatively short. I think each audiobook is probably around 10 hours long, and since I listen to mine on 2x speed, I get through them relatively quickly. Makes them pretty good for a readathon. I have to admit, world building wise, plot wise, they are pretty simple and straightforward. I would definitely not be going into these as a fantasy romance kind of situation where there is really a fantasy world being built up. I would just go into it for a good smutty time, and that's what I did, and I had fun. So that's that. Next, we have another audiobook. My audiobooks have been going strong this month, and that is Always Only You by Chloe Lisi. I never know if I'm saying her last name right. And I ended up giving this book 4 stars. This is the second book to the Bergman Brothers series, I believe. I read the first one way back in the summertime, and I think I was kind of underwhelmed by it, which is why it took me so long to finally get to the next book in the series, but I definitely enjoyed this one quite a bit more. Is it because I wasn't in a audiobook slump like I was with the other one? I don't know. Sometimes reading is a mood thing. But in this book, we are following Ren and Frankie. Ren is a hockey player, and Frankie is, I believe, their social media manager, and they have been working together for a few years, and it's clear both of them really like each other, but obviously they don't want to step over those professional lines or anything and start a relationship. However, one day Frankie is accepted into law school, I believe, and Ren sees this as his opportunity to finally take the next step in their relationship. Frankie has 2 disabilities. She has autism as well as arthritis. As you can see from the cover of the book, she does need to use a cane. I feel that both disabilities were really well represented within this book. Based off what I know of both of those disabilities, I do not have either of them, so this is not an Own Voices review or anything like that, but I did feel that it was realistic as well as respectful. I really enjoyed the banter between these two. I think that the author has a good sense of humor. The story definitely had me laughing quite a few times, and I thought the romance as a whole was really sweet, and Ren was really good at handling Frankie's insecurities. She very much did not want to be a burden to the person she ended up with, and I think he did a really good job of convincing her that she is not in fact a burden, but that he does understand that her disabilities may require her to need more attention from him than someone who doesn't have those disabilities, and that he is more than happy to give her that attention, and that he will at no point turn around and resent her for it. As far as the smut goes, I thought that it was relatively well done. It didn't blow my mind or anything like that, but I think just like any romance that I really enjoy, it did a good job of balancing the sweet moments, the sexy moments, and the more serious, heartfelt moments. And for the last book that I finished, and the only physical read that I have finished so far this month, we have Alpha of Immortal Flesh by Ben Alderson, and the third book in the Darkmoor universe. All of these books are technically standalones. You don't have to read them in order. That's just what I am doing. This one is over 500 pages, but it was a very quick read for me. I'm sorry if you can hear my laundry singing in the background. But in this book, it is obviously based off of Red Riding Hood. And we are following Rory and Calix. Rory is a witch and Calix is a werewolf. And Rory is actually married to a very abusive man at this point, and that man is the head of the Crimson Guard, which is a guard that is supposed to protect both humans and vampires without discrimination, which ever since Corey's husband took over is very much not the case. At this point, it seems that werewolves are not very normal in this world. In fact, most vampires and humans don't even know of their existence, so Calix is very much living a life of secrecy. But Rory's powers allow him to swap emotions. He can take emotions for people, he can give people the emotions he's feeling, and so Calix asks him to come see his grandmother because his grandmother is feeling a lot of pain and he would like Rory to take some of that pain away from her. Rory feels a very strong connection to Calix, but he's never met him, right? So he finds himself very nervous about this family, which may prove wise when Calix comes and kidnaps him from his husband and uses him as a hostage, saying he will give Rory back if his husband gives Calix his brother back. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. I almost gave it a lower rating because it pissed me off so much. I was so angry for a lot of this book, but this book deals very heavily with abusive relationships as well as with, we'll call it police corruption, since they're technically kind of the police force of this area. And so I was like, well, I'm supposed to be angry. And so this book did a really good job of pissing you off. So if you don't like a book that pisses you off, maybe don't pick this one up. But I really did enjoy the pacing of this book. Despite it being a chonker, there was never a time where I felt like I was bored. I was always happy to pick this book up. I was easily getting through 100 pages a day for this book. I thought that the romance was very interesting. I thought there was plenty of twists and major plot points throughout the story to keep me entertained. The smut, the first smut scene, I was kind of like, meh, but the last smut scene of the book, I was like, awooga. So I really did enjoy this book quite a lot. I really enjoyed the writing of this story. I thought it worked really well with this kind of fantasy retelling that we are doing here. I thought that our characters had a lot of important discussions throughout the story, and I can't really tell you why because that can be a little bit spoilery, but I do think that communication wise it was up and down, but for the most part when it came down to it, they were communicating relatively well. So if you're looking for a werewolf shifter romance that is a little bit different, I would say, than your usual shifter romance, I haven't read too many of them, but I feel like in this book, being a werewolf was very much presented as a curse and not this cool thing where you can run in a pack and have this really close family or anything. Like, no, this is like a really bad thing to happen to you. So I had a really great time with this and am definitely looking forward to continuing the series. I am technically caught up on it for a few days. I think the next book is coming out on like the 20-somethings of this month, and I will definitely try to pick it up sooner rather than later. I'm actually filming this clip after I finished the entire video because I have not put this book on my spreadsheet yet, so I completely forgot about it. I just finished it the other day, and that is Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. And this is the last book in the spoiler alert series. So I did finally finish a series. I finished my first series of the year, and in this book we are following Maria and Peter. This entire series has been following actors who are on this TV show, something of the gods, I forget what it's called, and it is somewhat a Greek retelling series, and the two people we are following in this book are very separate from the rest of the cast. They have been filming on this isolated island for like the last 6 years. They are playing characters that were shipwrecked, hence the title of the book. And while their relationship started off a bit rocky because they had a one-night stand and then Maria up and left without saying anything, and then found out she would be working for him, and that just left that just led to a lot of awkwardness. Over the course of those 6 years, they have very much gotten close and become friends. Both of them have wanted more than friendship, but seeing as how isolated they've been on this island and they knew they would be there for years and years, they decided not to risk a relationship that could end messy. However, eventually the TV series comes to an end and it is finally time for them to start that relationship they have always wanted. But as they finally get together, it seems like they may possibly want different things in life and they really need to figure out if they are really the person they are supposed to be with. I will say that this book started off rough. Like, I was like, oh, I don't like this at all. I hate Peter. It really took me a long time to like Peter. And I think that if you DNF this book before the 25% mark, that I would understand. I wouldn't blame you for doing that. But I did end up sticking with this story. And then once again, Olivia Dade's writing and character development and humor just ended up winning me over again. I did end up giving this book 4 stars. So definitely the weakest out of all the books in the trilogy. I gave the first book 5 stars, the second book 4.5 stars. So it went a little bit downhill, but I did at the end of the day still really enjoy these books. In this book, both the female and the main character were fat. So in the first 2 books, only the female characters were. So if you're looking for a representation of male fat characters, you will get it in this book. So I thought that the smut was really sexy. And once Peter stopped being an a-hole, it took him a very long time to stop being an a-hole. He was like less of an a-hole, and then finally he was like, oh, I'm dumb, sorry. And I was like, yeah, you better go grovel, mister. But at the end of the day, I thought that this was a really sweet story and I really enjoy the way that this series ended. All right, guys, let's talk about the books that I'm currently reading. As far as my physical read, I am currently reading a book on my Kindle. I definitely have been prioritizing my Kindle books, which sucks because I have this whole top shelf of my book cart is covered in books, physical books that I was hoping to read this month, and I only read one of them so far. But the book I'm currently working on is Dark Harmony by Laura Thalassis, and this is the last book in the Bargainer series, the first of which is Rhapsodic book. I have really been enjoying this series, and I'm luckily really enjoying this last book. I was worried I wouldn't because the novella, which I read a few months ago, gave me the ick. It really did. The Bargainer and Callie meet when she is 16, and while there's technically nothing romantic going on between the two of them, the Bargainer is like hundreds of years old and he's hanging out alone with this teenager in her bedroom, and it's weird. So I did not like that whatsoever. It was definitely giving grooming vibes. It was definitely giving pedo vibes, but luckily in the rest of the books, they are both of age, and so it's not as weird, and I'm just really enjoying Laura Thalassis' writing and looking forward to completing the series so I can check out some of her other ones. As far as my audiobooks go, I am currently working on That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human, which is the last book in the Meets Mishap series. Like I said, these are relatively short, and so they're really great for readathons. I started it just yesterday, so I think I'm exactly 10% through that right now, which reminds me I am at 64% through Dark Harmony. But as far as this audiobook, I don't really have anything to say on it yet because I literally just started it, but I am looking forward to completing another series. Now, I have started a couple other books that I am hoping to finish throughout this month. I did start The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon, which is the last book in the Bone Seasons that is currently out, and I am over 50% through this book. Luckily, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I did book 2 and 3. Did not enjoy those were boring, but this one is definitely getting more interesting. I know going into series that are super long, I want to say this one's probably supposed to be like 8 books or something. You're always like, does the series need to be that long? And then you read some of the books and you're like, no, they don't, because these books are dragging and this book honestly doesn't even need to be here. But this book has a lot of interesting stuff going on in it, so I am looking forward to picking that up again. I did start Acceptance by Jeff Vandermeer, and I only got 38 pages into it. I just was not feeling Jeff Vandermeer's writing, more in that I just didn't have the brain power to deal with it. I feel like his writing is not straightforward at all. It's very strange, just like the story, which makes it perfect for this kind of story, but it requires a bit more brain power than I am willing to give right now. So as far as what I will be reading throughout the month as I continue on with this readathon, I have all of these. I really do. I have so many options. I have not been prioritizing my physical list, so I will definitely be trying to do that here in the second month. I would say Perfect World, the manga are definitely going to get read, and I would really like to finish up the Warrior series because I was supposed to finish that last year, and I will for sure be reading at least volume 7 of Heaven's Official Blessing, like for sure, no questions asked about it. All right, guys, so those are all the books that I have read or am currently reading or still could potentially get to this month. We do technically still have slightly over half of the month left to go, so I'm hoping to power through a few of those physical reads and not rely so heavily on audiobooks. But I would love to know how your first half of the month has been going. What was the first book you read this year? And if you're taking part in Squash That series, how are you doing? How is your team doing? I did make it past the first round, and when Bailey, the host of this readathon, updated us on where our team was standing against our competitors, we were technically ahead, but she said that we had the smallest gap between our scores. So we're definitely gonna have to fight to get to the next round. We are in no way safe or guaranteed to win, so we're gonna keep reading and giving it our all. As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!